Hello. So this is my song. It's called Wear a Dress. It's about gender expression and that whoever you are is whoever you choose to be. Um, Thank you so much for Booker T for giving me a platform to talk about things like this because it's not really talked about that much, and I'm very happy to talk about it. So, thank you.
I can wear a dress if I want to. I can dress however I want to. It doesn't matter what they think of me. It shouldn't matter 'cause they're weak. They hate me 'cause I am free. They hate me 'cause I am everything they wanna be. I'm me. I can wear makeup if I choose. I can make up what you choose. You can call me names, but no matter what you say, the words never hurt me. Trust me, I've seen worse. I'm me. You can do whatever you want to. You can do whoever you want to. You have ownership. Don't ever trip. Lose a grip on your neck. Always keep yourself on check. You can always talk to me, but I just want you to see the living vicariously will never be enough, because you are enough. When you are you, when you are you, when you are you, when you are you.
Wow, John, what a great performance. That's awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that incredible, powerful message, and keep doing that, please. Before we begin the panel discussion, I wanted to talk a little bit about MusiCares and my personal experience with this incredible nonprofit. My service within the academy, serving on the board, serving on various committees for over 10 years now, easily. I've always been a part of participating, helping in all kinds of events for MusiCares. It's an incredible organization. part of the academy that helps the music community as a whole in many different ways and forms. For myself personally, something that I share more and more now here in the last year or so. Years back, I was feeling down, having some anxiety, depression, kind of things of that nature, and I reached out myself, which is hard for two reasons, right? Me being a Latino, being strong-headed, and also another thing, just feeling that I have to do it myself, I have to figure it out, and I couldn't. And I realized that I needed to get some kind of assistance. And this incredible organization that helps the entire music community was there for me. So I'm going to shut up because there's an expert in the room, and we have a great panel of people that are going to talk about this subject. And so now it's my pleasure to introduce our panel moderator, Erica KRUSEN. Erica is the managing director of the mental health and addiction services team at MusiCares. Erica is also a licensed marriage and family therapist with a master's degree in counseling psychology. She has over 15 years of experience in both private and community settings, as well as teaching at the graduate level. Erica, please take it away.
Hi, thank you, Carlos. That was a great intro. Very nice. And John, wow. I was trying to figure out how to not start this off with tears, but that was so beautiful. Thank you. Welcome to Mental Wellness and the Musician, presented by MusiCares, the Recording Academy's Texas chapter, the Grammy Museum, and Grammy U. Together, we're thrilled to bring this program to you as part of Mental Health Awareness Month, where we at MusiCares have been committed to bringing programs and resources, action, awareness about the ongoing need to destigmatize mental health challenges and make sure that people have a place to turn to receive the help they need. Even though the music industry has done a lot of work to mitigate the stigma surrounding mental illness lately, a sense of shame, denial, secrecy, all of those continue to afflict people in communities and cultures around the world. When we have mental wellness, we can help shift our focus toward a more positive and empowering approach rather than just avoiding or coping with illness. Importantly, mental wellness emphasizes our capacity to build resilience, to reduce suffering, to find inner peace, joy, fulfillment, to seek purpose, meaning, and happiness, and to connect with others. By acknowledging this as a universal condition and longing shared by all of us, there is no need to feel shame or to feel that we are alone in this endeavor. So let's get to it. You're all in for a really great program as I get to welcome Latin Grammy-nominated artist and songwriter Gina Chavez, Blue October founding member and lead singer Justin Furstenfeld, and Grammy-nominated rapper Paul Wall. Thank you all so much for being here today. I'm so excited. I've read so much about you and just have been excited to share this stage with you, if you will. All three of our guest panelists have come here today to share their stories of challenge and triumph, self-care and wellness, and how they have been able to navigate some of their own hurdles around their experiences working in the music industry. They're here today to stand up for you, to stand up for your pain and struggles and acknowledge your mental health. So we can't thank you enough, and I just want to start with all of you. So I want to start by asking the three of you to tell us a little bit about yourself that we don't know already through your Wikipedias or bios, but rather, why was it important for each of you to be here and talk about your experiences and challenges and triumphs in the music industry to the students at Booker T. Washington? Paul, you want to start?
I'd love to start. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you, the panel, and the students. Booker T, what's up? I'm really excited to be here because, for one, my nickname, my moniker is the People's Champ. I'm a friendly, likable guy. I'm usually smiling, usually showing off my grills. But with that is a misconception that I'm always happy. I'm smiling so people assume that I'm happy, but that actually was a trick my mom taught me when I was younger. I went through a lot as a child, a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, a lot of I came from a broken home, a dysfunctional family. There's a lot going on in my house. So the same way my mom taught me you would chew gum to trick your brain that you're chewing food. If you're hungry, you chew gum and, your brain thinks you're chewing food. So you it satisfies some of the hunger urges. It's the same way she taught me to smile. When you smile, when you put that smile after you're tricking your brain into thinking that you're happy. So it sends whatever hormones and chemicals in your body to your brain to make you feel happy. So it's really like a defense mechanism for me, always smiling. And I've always felt that if I'm frowning and me mugging the other people, that they're going to frown and me mug right back. A smile can be contagious. So I tend to smile. So hopefully it'll encourage others to smile. But like I said, with that comes people often assuming that I'm always happy, that life is perfect. But I gotta maneuver through challenges like everybody. I got ups and downs, normal life like everyone else. And it's not until other people explain that to me that I get it. So that's why I'm here to help talk about it, explain what I might go through to others, as well as learn from these others. Gina and Justin, I'm definitely I want to learn from both of them as well. So I'm real happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Gina?
Paul Wall, I love you. I always start off with the right energy. It's so funny. So when I was approached about being part of this panel, my first thought was I'm somebody with a very different background than Paul. I think like I grew up in a very stable home. My parents are still together. I live in Austin. My parents still live in the house I grew up in. I have a great older brother. Like I've kind of had like a very stable, loving family, wonderful life. And I think for me, I've never thought that I struggle with anything like mental health related things don't necessarily like, oh, I don't really struggle with that. Like I'm fine. And the more that I just live life, I'm like, we all need to take care of our mental health, and especially going through the group trauma of the pandemic, that I'm actually in this moment where starting to see people again is like I'm a total extrovert. Like I love people. I need people in my life. It's and so me kind of spending a year kind of by myself at home instead of being on the road on tour. It's been a very different experience. And now I'm starting to get back out in the world. And I'm not gonna lie, I literally am having these moments where I am like breaking down. And like yesterday was one of those moments. And so anyway, the point being that I think mental health, we all need to take care of our mental health, and it's so important to understand that our bodies and our minds and our spirits have all been going through something really traumatic, and that may be on top of other traumas that we've experienced in our family lives, or friends and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm just really excited to also learn and to share with y'all. And we welcome your questions and all that good stuff. So you are, and to also jump off of John's incredible song. I myself am a queer Latina. I sing in English and Spanish. My wife and I, we met at a Catholic church. So like, there's a lot of kinds of things that I think are coming into play in this conversation, and I'm more than happy to be an open book.
Thank you, Gina. Justin?
Well, let me start off by saying it's an honor to be here. Thank you so much. And first of all, let me give mad respect to Mr. Paul Wall. He is a legend in Houston. I'm from Houston, and growing up, he is the one that put Third Coast like on the map for us, and he put that screwed sound, like you have no idea the man sitting in front of y'all. Like he's a genius, a legend, and I could go on forever. This whole panel could be about how badass Paul Wall is, but I gotta stop. I mean, I'm H-Town, baby, and that's all I gotta say first of all. So thank you for having me on this panel with Mr. Paul Wall and Gina Chavez. I cannot wait to learn about you. And I'm just blessed every day. I feel more blessed that I get to share experiences like this with people and get to share knowledge that I've learned the hard way and the beautiful way from living with mental illness and depression and being in the music industry. I was a kid who grew up, and my parents were together. We didn't have a lot of money, but we grew up in the Heights in Houston, and And I took, ever since I was a kid, I always just had dark, dark, dark thoughts, and they were just so different. It was hard for me to just be at peace. And since I was a kid at 14, I've been on Paxil, and I'll just say I'm in my 40s now. I won't tell you the exact age, but I know I look 20, but it's fine. We'll just move on from that. But I've been on Paxil ever since I was 14, so it's made me who I am. But the one thing about me is if I go off of that Paxil, if I go off of my medication and I go off of the healthy routine that I'm on now, I change. I completely change. I fall into this paranoid nightmare of a person, and I become socially phobic. It just takes over my whole life. The beauty of art, and that's why I'm a part of this, is because my life has been saved by music thousands of times. My life has been saved by putting a beat down and then just speaking what I'm feeling. And a lot of people in the music industry at times are like, oh, there's that dramatic person. I don't do it for you. I do it to speak so I can get through another day and just be this crazy person that I feel inside. That, yes, my mom told me the same thing, Paul, put a smile on even when you're sad, because you're going to attract negative people with that frown. And you want those positive people in your life. So I won't go into it too much. I'll take any questions you got. But yes, I live with depression. I've lived with it my whole life. But I use music and I use art as a way to communicate that. And I don't worry about the material things in life. I worry about getting my point across to the best beat, to the best hook, and then the best words, and then changing people's life when they listen to it. That's what life's about. Listen to that song and you're like, oh my God, there's nothing better than a song that'll just take you somewhere. And that's what's so beautiful. Music has saved my life. So I thank you for letting me be here. I'll shut up now.
Thank you for sharing that. Wow, this is really great. The three of you are an open book, like you said. You were at the top of this panel, and I'm so appreciative, because I don't think that we can really get this message out and through if we don't share our own, challenges. So
Right.
Here's the thing. There's a lot of people talk about, we hear the words a lot: mental health, mental wellness, mental illness, and those words get interchanged, and the meaning can get quite vague. So we all know that we have mental health, right? We all can achieve mental wellness, and we all also know that a lack of mental illness does not mean we have mental wellness. You following me?
Oh yeah.
So I'm curious, what does mental wellness mean to all of you, and what do you do on a daily basis to maintain that? Because we all need to, all of us, and especially over COVID, we've all been challenged to figure out, what is our self-care routine? How do we take care of us? Because I think we've all cracked open. COVID has cracked us open,
Yeah.
and we've had to figure out how to maintain, some sort of wellness to keep going through. And, last night I was thinking about this, and I was like, wow, as tough as times got through COVID, as a whole community, we did weather the storm. We're coming out of it somehow. So
Right.
tell me, whoever wants to take it first, what is your routine? How do you maintain it? How
Man.
have you maintained it through COVID?
Man, I'm a selfish person when it comes to my mental stability. Like if I'm in the studio and somebody's in the studio with me and they're not vibing right, or they're just a negative Nancy, and it's just I ask them to leave. Like I ask them to leave. I literally do that with people in my life that are spiritually sick. And my mom told me once, and my counselors told me when I went to rehab, that you have the right to separate yourself from anyone in this world. Just do it respectfully. Keep people around you that lift you up. If you go through your contacts in your phone, and if there's anybody there that's just erase them, block them. You don't need that in your life, especially if you're just trying to work on your well-being. Every day I get hundreds of texts a day, which I'm sure you, Gina, and Paul, y'all just bam, people want something from you all the time. I literally ignore most of them because there's nothing, if it doesn't have to do with my wife, my health of my kids, my business, or helping people in recovery, I'm just like, I don't have time for it. And that's selfish, but I have to be that way. I have to keep the blinders on of the positivity. And I I have to go walking every day. I have to get outside. I have to literally make myself go walk 2 or 3 miles a day. And then I have to get in the studio and surround myself with these 7 cats that I write with all the time. And I just have to put it out. If I'm not in the studio, I better be doing something with my family because my mental wellness will not be good. So it's either studio or activities with my family or tour. And this whole year with no touring, oh my gosh, who is this guy? What matters about this? I'm not getting that instant gratification from the fans. So am I any good anymore? Oh man, do my songs really suck? So I have to be that selfish. I have to be that proactive with my medication taking, with my working out, with what I eat. If I go eat McDonald's, y'all, a bunch of French fries, it'll just make me feel horrid. My mental stability will go to shit. And it has to do with all of that. I'll shut up, but I'm so selfish with it. And it's okay to be selfish with it. If someone is spiritually sick and they're bringing your life down, set them free, but pray for them. You know what I'm saying? Pray for them. That's what I'm saying. Sorry.
I love that you talked about how to gently cut people out of your lives. It's important,
That's
I
a
think,
big one.
we're talking to a lot of students who have grown up in the generation of all social media, right? And one of the biggest things that I see a lot of kids in private practice struggling with is social media, and they're scrolling through the best of everybody's lives, right? And I'm always saying to them, I find myself saying, why don't you fill that feed with other stuff, art, music, architecture, whatever it is that interests you, put that in so it's not you're not seeing the negative stuff like all of the political stuff we went through last year, and it was just constant feed. Figure out how to digitally detox, right? Gina,
True.
let's hear from you. How do you maintain your mental wellness, and how have you been able to do it over this last year?
Yeah. I would say honestly, I think kind of given the backstory that I started with, this year has taught me so much about my own mental well-being and the need to kind of, as Justin said, like be selfish about it and figure out what works for you. Um, I was always just fine. I was fine most of the time, and so it wasn't a thing, right? Well, suddenly when tours shut down and I was at home all the time and I was really busy, I had like last year was actually like the best year of my career. I got nominated for a Latin Grammy. I was on Renee Brown's podcast. Like there were some really cool things that were happening. But I was just literally sitting at home, like you talked about, social media. I was literally spent my year just like connecting with people, and it was a great, like we had some really great connections from people all over the world, and like having DM conversations, like that were deep, not just like, hey, follow my music. But I think point being, like, it was a very different shift, and I was forced to spend a lot of time with myself, and I'm such a an extrovert that, like, I think, like, I was the kind of person that before I met my wife, like I was never home. I was always off doing something. I was never home. I never cooked. I literally went home to like change clothes, get my gear, and like do a thing. And you know what I mean? And so I never spent a lot of time with myself. I always knew I wanted to do something like journaling, for instance, but I would never make time for it. So fast forward to the pandemic, and I'm like forced to basically just like be by myself all the time, but I'm still very busy. And it was earlier this year that I kind of went through what I call the pandemic funk, where I was just like, I'm not okay. Like I was like on a Zoom call. I have a day job as well, and I was on a Zoom call with my work, and I'm like breaking down crying. And I was just like, oh my God, what's happening? Um, and so, one of the things, to get to your question, I think the things that I've discovered that I wish I knew when I was your age, talking to Booker T students here, I wish I had known about morning pages. And I would highly encourage you to try it out. And so, essentially, morning pages is literally 3 pages like you literally just write 3 pages, and it's not meant to be creative writing. It is not meant to be useful. It's not like you're trying to write a song or a poem. You could call it like stream of consciousness. It's literally a brain dump. Like just do a brain dump for 3 pages and that's it. Don't do more, don't do less. 3 pages. And it's actually it's part of this book that's by a woman named Julia Cameron, and it's called The Artist Way. Here's the book. And so the book talks about more, it's all kind of based around morning pages as like a daily practice. And then what's called the artist date. And the artist date is where you set aside some sacred time, 2 hours a week, and you literally play. Like, again, it's not to like write a song that you're going to put out to the world. It's like, go take a walk and take photos of leaves. Like, you know, find a kazoo and just like just literally playtime and the importance of play. And I'm not going to lie, the artist date for me, I have not been good about like making that part of my practice. And I notice when I do the morning pages and not the artist date, like my mental health suffers. So I would just encourage you to try. So it's 3 pages. Honestly, I think pick whatever size of page you want. It doesn't really matter. You know, just do the 3 pages in the morning and just try it. And it's really interesting what'll happen, because you'll think it's like not productive and it's annoying, but it's basically it's teaching you to clear your mind of what a lot of creatives run into is the critic. So a lot of times, like I know for me, I try to go write a phrase for a song, and the critic is like, oh, that sucks. It's not good. So then I stop. I don't even write it down, right? So the morning pages just allows you to teach your critic to be quiet. And it does a lot of other things. So anyway, so I'll leave it there. I also think for me, like Justin, going outside is so important. I need the sunlight. I have a pretty strict diet, mainly for vocal health, but I'm gluten-free, dairy-free, mainly paleo, like pretty much a paleo diet. And I'm the same way. If I eat off my diet, my body is not happy. So anyway, I'll leave it there. But
Great advice. I love that. I wrote that morning pages down. Paul, love to hear from you.
Yeah, to piggyback on what has been said already. I grew up thinking that, you know, my happiness was just so random. If someone was nice to me, I was happy. If they were mean to me, I was upset. If something good happened, I was happy. If I got something I wanted to eat, I wanted to eat it, so I'm happy. But as I got older, I realized that we really have control over a lot of these things. I don't have control over what someone does or says to me, but I do have control over how I accept it and perceive it. You know, so many of us are unhappy and miserable. So a lot of times, I've just learned to just brush my shoulders off and just put up a filter when it comes to dealing with people. A lot of times people, like I said, they're miserable, then they're going to talk to you in a miserable way because they're miserable. It's not really directed to me. It's, reflective of how they're feeling sometimes. But if I take it personal, how they treat me or talk to me, then I'm going to be miserable and combative back. And then it's just going to, elevate from there and only get worse. And I've just felt that, when people talk to me or whatever I receive from people, how they speak to me, I try to, like I say, accept it with a filter of, okay, let me take away their tone of voice. Let me take away their facial expressions and even what they're saying. Let me try to see their side of it, from why they're saying this, what they're saying. Let me experience it from their point of view and try to hear them and see them. And, and usually when I do that, it alleviates a lot of the tension. It's difficult sometimes because people can be rude and I could be having a bad day as well. And, you basically like you're faking it till you make it, faking being happy till you are happy. But, what was said about, what we put in our bodies is so important. With the food, a lot of times, we don't realize, we're actually putting poisons in our bodies and we're having negative effects from the impact of what we're eating, what we're drinking. And that a lot of times is why we're feeling bad, physically and mentally, because there's chemicals in the food that we eat, the drinks that we drink, a lot of times that make you chemically dependent on the food. And they give you a sugar rush to make you feel bad, but immediately afterwards you feel worse. And then you want more of that. And then of course the sugar leads to all kind of other, these are things that I never, it was might as well be teaching me trigonometry or, Mandarin or something, because it was something that was completely foreign to me, like these type of concepts. I just, you're hungry, you eat, and I thought that was it. But now I realize, like Justin said, I realize if I eat certain foods, I'm going to feel like crap later on. And if that's, so I got to be proactive about my mental health, my mental well-being. I got to, like Gina said, you got to dump some of this. Sometimes, there's the actual physically writing it down. Sometimes, we might have somebody we talk to where you just vent and you just talk, it's so valuable to do that. And not like on a live, where I'm live and the whole world can see it. I mean, I don't know, that might be helpful too if you're trying to get over something or experience something. But I just mean that personal, private venting type of, counsel session with one of your friends or one of your teachers or a family member or a neighbor or a coworker. Or it could be a homeless person on the street. It doesn't matter who it is. Sometimes you just need to let go of whatever thoughts you're holding on to or whatever has been piling on, that people have been giving you their, unhappiness and their misery. And they've been looking it at you. They've been saying it to you. They've been, physically maybe doing something where they're dumping it on you. And sometimes you just got to let it go so that you can move on. But, definitely. So the talking to people, talking it out, that's been a big part of being aware of things that are, sometimes you're unaware, but when you try to focus on what triggers you certain ways, what makes you feel bad, like whether it's the food or just in life, things, they have an effect on you. And once you kind of recognize certain things, like I can recognize that, if me and my wife are, she's talking to me a certain way, I can recognize, okay, if I talk to her a certain way back, then this is going to lead to an argument. And we don't want an argument, she's just maybe having a bad day or I'm having a bad day or something. So, these are things you learn to recognize. But, the health thing, the food, that's been a huge part of it. Also, medication and doctors, make sure a lot of us, we go to doctors. Sometimes the doctors are there for profit. They're not there to cure you or help you feel better. They're there because you're a good customer. You're going to keep coming back, every month for a new prescription. So we got to be aware of some of these type of things, who we're going to, who we're seeking help from, what I'm saying, whether it's professional medical help or just who you're venting to. Sometimes you're talking to somebody who wants you to be miserable. Misery loves company. That's one of the truest statements ever. And, you got to be careful sometimes of who you surround yourself with or who surrounds themselves with you, or, who you interact with. But all of these things are being, like I say, when I grew up, I didn't know I had control over these things. Now that I'm older, I realize I do have control over these things. If somebody cuts me off on the freeway, then I pull up on the side of them and start cussing them out and throw something at their car. Everybody got a gun in Texas. I might get shot, whereas if I just let them cut me off, I tell myself, well, maybe if they wouldn't have cut me off, I would have gotten a car accident 2 miles up the road. So, hey, go ahead. You in a rush? I'm going to go with the flow kind of guy. But, that's something that I've learned, just to, how I react to what other people give to me, or how I react to, what comes my way is that has been crucial. The patience aspect, especially through the pandemic, that's been so crucial because everyone's on edge and nobody's going to let nobody disrespect them. Oh, you're not going to disrespect me. So now I got to, go to 10 just to let the whole world know that I'm not going to be disrespected, when it could easily have been just all right, have a nice day, and that's it. But, just being proactive about these things has been crucial. Exercise too. Exercise, like I've been depressed multiple times throughout my life. It's like an ongoing thing. So exercise and just drinking good water, those two things right there are man, they can help so much your physical body, which then affects your brain and your mind, how you deal with things. You know, if you have a long, hard day and you got classwork, you got homework, you got your parents fussing at you, you got a job you got to go to, you know, all of these type of things, it's going to affect, you know, something, when something minor happens to you, all these things affect how you react to that. You know what I'm saying? So if you can mitigate and alleviate some of these things, you know, little by little, you know, you got a long to-do list, do the easiest things first. So some of these things like drinking water, that's an easy thing. Of course, we want to drink Gatorade or Sprite or whatever else you want to drink, but just drinking that good old water is crucial.
So,
And the exercise too.
so true. Thank you. That was really great. Justin, I have a question for you. You touched a little bit. Oh yeah, the life water. You touched a little bit on your challenges and how you've dealt with depression and substance abuse. I want to know, is there, was there a single moment or an episode or an incident where you finally said, I need help? And how'd that happen?
Yeah, in short, just to piggyback off what Paul Wall said, when I started going to see psychiatrists at a young age, when I got old enough to make my own decisions on what medication they were going to give me, I started asking for things like Xanax. I started asking for things like Adderall. I started asking for things like Oxys because they're going to help me feel better. But I didn't know that those things, man, they made you just slip down this slope, and then you're on the road, and then it goes crazy. I began to self-medicate probably around like 18, 19, 20, got major record deals, spent all the money on that stuff, whatever. But the fact of the matter is it only hurt. It abused, it crucified my depression. It killed it. It just put me in another level of dark and another level of just despair is the only word I could ever imagine. And my depression was never that low until I started using drugs. And then when life happens to all the students out there, you're going to do things like get married. You're going to do things like have kids. And when those marriages don't work out and you don't get to see your kid, things like that, when that hit me, that's when it all went way down. And then there was like this hole that I was sitting in, and everybody around me just kind of gave up. And it was no longer about depression, because I had masked that depression so much with all these little things that made me feel good. And now I was no longer partying. I was literally trying to just numb the pain of not being able to see my daughter, right? And it hurt so bad that I just kept doing it and kept doing it so much that I forgot all about depression. Now I'm just a full-blown junkie. And with people with depression, you got to be careful like that. Just like Paul Wall says, you eat a piece of candy, it feels good for a second. Then you need more. You need more, you need more, you need more. With drugs, it's so bad because it will make you feel better for a second. But when life hits you and you have real problems, it's not a way to cope, because then your depression gets masked by all these chemicals. I was at a point in my life when I was no longer allowed to see my kids because of the drugs. I was no longer allowed to be in a band. Everybody sat me down and told me, you either do this or you're done. And I thought I would just give it a month and then fake everybody out and then go back to using again. But what I found out is after I got clean and sober in rehab 9 years ago, I started going, oh, wow. I can now, I like who I am. But now here's that depression again. Oh, but this is nothing compared to that despair I was feeling. Maybe I should get proactive with this. And then when I found out that if I just went and saw a doctor every day, started walking every day, and doing all the things that I said earlier, that life got a little bit easier, and now I can live with the depression because I don't put anything in my body that makes it worse, because I know it's like pouring gas on a flame and it just ignites. And the way my brain works, I don't want to end up like Chester, my good friend from Lincoln Park. I don't want to end up like Chris Chris Cornell or Shannon Hoon or Jean-Michel Basquiat or Kurt Cobain or Amy Winehouse. All these people, you know, Amy Winehouse was on the same label as me. And it's just like, what? And it's a sad thing, but recovery is possible. Depression, living with it and being a happy person and content and peaceful, it's possible. It just takes hard work, just like working out a muscle. You have to work at it, but when you get there, you are a badass, dude. You are a badass because the shit you've overcome, you're like, boom, I'm the best at this fucking game of life. And my songs are dope as shit now. Oh my God. I was such a whiny little bitch back then. Now I can man up and write about real shit. Shit that might help people. And it's dope. But the drugs, man, it almost killed me. Almost took away all my kids. All my kids. And man, my kids are everything to me. Just like Paul Wall, you know? They're everything. So you do anything for them. So that's all I got to say about that. But did I answer your question? Or did I babble? I babbled.
No, it was good. That was a really great message. I love your passion about it too.
Oh, I'm so passionate about recovery. Like, it's crazy. I go to like AA meetings and people are like, who's this guy? Oh, and I'm like, you gotta make it work. You know, it's just, it's real, man. It's real. Recovery and living good is real. And you can become such a badass at your craft.
It's what we need to hear too. So I appreciate it. Gina, you know, I know you've had challenges over the years, and certainly I'm curious, you know, I know you identify as queer, and I'm wondering, was there any advantages or disadvantages to working in the music industry and coming out and speaking your truth?
You know, I would say that, so what's interesting about my story is that, like, my wife and I literally met at the University Catholic Center at the University of Texas. Like, my Catholic faith was everything to me. And, you know, whether or not, you know, anybody watching identifies, you know, with their faith, with their Christian faith or whatever, we are a country that says we are Christian, right? And I'm still, like, I love my Catholic faith. There are a lot of problems I have with the Catholic Church, but part of it is, like, I think for me, it hasn't been a problem being queer in the music industry. It has been a problem being queer, or been a challenge being queer in my family. It's been a problem being queer in a state that, you know, does not see us as, is literally spent, you know, for those who are aware, I mean, we're going through a Texas legislative session where they are throwing everything at trans people, queer people. I mean, it's people of color. Like, our Texas legislature, in a lot of ways, doesn't see people who are not, you know, white and male as people. And so anyway, so I think the point being, like, a lot of the struggles that my wife and I have had is, how do you reconcile a faith that tells you be yourself, and, you know, Christ is here to for you to, you know, be joyful, and that your joy might be complete, and then at the same time your church community tells you, yeah, but you can't actually be yourself. And so that presents a lot of issues, you know. And I'm so grateful that I kind of didn't figure out I was a lesbian until I was 24, until I was already out of school. And I think back and I'm like, wow, I don't know what that would be like to go through that as a young person, you know. And I'm hoping that now places like Booker T are more accepting, that you don't have to, you know, worry about your own livelihood, your own safety, much less that you can actually express yourself and be yourself. And that's why I love that we opened this whole thing with John's piece, where they literally are saying just that: be yourself. The world is better when you can be yourself. And so anyway, I think a lot of, I don't know. I mean, everybody's got their own struggles, and I know there's that message, especially for, you know, the LGBTQIA community, that it gets better, but it does get better. It does get better. You know, the hard part, I think, for me is that, especially in a faith community, there's not even dialogue. Like, there's no chance to even have that conversation, and that's what's so frustrating to me. You know, even when my wife Jody and I were going to get married, we have really cool like priest and nun friends that we were talking to, but at the same time, we couldn't get married in a Catholic church. You know, and it's frustrating because for me, we literally, so we had been together for 12 years before marriage equality was even a possibility. We didn't ever think it was going to be possible, especially in Texas. And so in 2017, we decided to get married. And I had this real crisis of faith because I was like, wow, I've literally been going to Mass my entire life, every Sunday going to Mass. And my wife and I have spent our relationship going to Mass together. And yet we can't get married in that church because our genitalia doesn't work out, right? And yet my brother, and no shade on my brother, but my brother's not a practicing Catholic. But he got to show up, not to be vulgar, but with a penis and a vagina, and they got to get married in my church. And like, that messes with you. It messes with you when your community doesn't say like, hey, yeah, we believe you and we love you. And so, you know, and at the same time, like, I love my church community. We are still there. There's a part of me that understands you cannot change a community if you are not part of it. And at the same time, we all have to decide where we can be our full selves. And so that's not to say you have to stay, like, don't stay in a situation that's not safe for you. But if it is safe for you enough to be a change, then we can be a change, you know? And I think even just our presence there is important. It's important for my wife and I to go sit in a pew at a Catholic church and hold hands and receive the body of Christ, because it means something to us, but also because we deserve to be there, you know? So I think, you know, I know you asked about the music community. I really haven't, you know, I've been very accepted, and I'm very blessed for that. But I think I also sing about all of these things. It's like I perform under my own name because I bring all of this to the stage, or to a coffee shop or like a Zoom meeting, you know? So, yeah.
Great, Gina. And we do need to see that change. So we've got some questions from the kids right now, if you guys would like to hear them. Our first one is Brooklyn. Brooklyn, are you out there?
Do you have any suggestions like on different outlets for mental health, and just like either through music or anything else, like how to cope with things? Just
You mean like, do we have any suggestions like what would we do if we need to cope and get it out, like dance or write a play about it, or like, you could do anything. That's what's so beautiful, and that's where you are right now. You're at Booker T, right?
yes.
Like School of the Arts, right?
Mhm.
Like, that place is dope. I went to Houston Performing and Visual Arts, right? High School for Performing and Visual Arts, and it changed my freaking life. You have every single aspect of every art. You have dance, you have visual art, you have media. I say go. What I would do at lunch, I would go step into the chamber of the choir and listen to them. And then the next day at lunch, I would go watch the pianists play. And then the next day, I would go look at the playwrights. And then I'd go to the visual artists, and I would hang out with everybody. I was everybody's best friend because I wanted to be the best artist, because I knew I had so much shit up here that I wanted to get out. So now I can make beats. I can make hip-hop beats. I can make rock music. I can paint. I can dance. And I dance good, girl. And you can do anything. The sky is the limit for you. And you have a ticket. You have like the golden ticket in Willy Wonka's freaking chocolate factory right now, sitting in that school. You do. So utilize it. You don't have to just stick. What's your art form? What are you there for? Music?
Music, yeah. I play flute.
Okay, well guess what? Go talk to some of the theater teachers. Get your chops up on standing on stage. Get your voice and diction up so you can take that flute on stage and be a badass like Gina over here, you know? And then you can go check out your dance moves, you know? Lizzo does the same shit, you know? Like, get proactive with it so then you won't have time to think about your depression. You're too busy expressing yourself through all this damn art, you know? Like, it's like a tool. Use it.
Great. Thanks, Justin.
Sorry.
The one thing I was going to add is I know for me, like I put a lot of pressure on myself sometimes when I do have a lot of opportunities and I'm like, oh, I should be creating. I should be like, and that in and of itself is like not a good place to be. So like, I think like that's, you have all the, you know, there's a lot of stuff at your fingertips. Maybe something, a way to think about it is also just follow your curiosity. A lot of times we talk about passion, and passion wanes. Like passion is not always there, you know, but if you follow your curiosity is going to lead you all kinds of wild places. And I think that's kind of what Justin's talking about. Is like, I can literally see him being like, oh, I'm going to go over here. I'm going to go over here. Like, and it may not make a lot of sense because you're like, I'm a flautist. Like, I don't need to go learn my dance moves. But if you're interested, like if that at all piques your interest, you're like, hey, I'm going to go learn some TikTok moves with a friend. It doesn't have to be correlated to being a flute player. You know what I mean? So, but I also would say like, you don't have to put it on yourself as if like, oh, I have to go do all the things. It's more like, what am I curious about? And I'm, without thinking it to death, go do it. Like, don't think about it and how it relates to the future. Just be like, hey, I don't know why, but I'm suddenly really, I want to go plant a plant in my backyard. Like, who cares, right? So follow your curiosity.
Thank you.
Next question, Gandhi. Are you out there?
Yes, here we go. There we go. Okay, so my question is, when creating music, do you think about the effect it has on the listener or the audience, or the effect it has on yourself?
That's a very good question. Paul, do you want to answer that one first, or do you want me to?
I
Go ahead,
think
Paul.
me personally, most of the music I've made has been something how it affects me personally. There has been songs where like in a collaborative process with either the producer or another artist, well, they'll say, hey, this is the subject of the song, and it might be something that I'm not really into, but I can make it right. I can write a rap about it. But usually like if I'm going in like to the studio, it's like, it's for me, you know. I'm talking about something that has been weighing on my heart, and it might be something that's been weighing on my heart for 8 years, and I'm just now it's built up to, okay, now I'm gonna go finally put pen to paper. But I say me personally is usually been for me personally.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to say the same thing. I craft it. I do it because I love it. I make the beat the way I want to bang to it, you know. And then I go talk to a bunch of radio programmers and say, y'all gonna play this? And they're like, well, maybe if it was a little faster, or maybe if that kick drum hit a little bit harder, then I'll be like, okay, hold on, I'll go change it for you, you know. And then it hits harder, and everybody loves it.
Thanks, Gandhi. Samuel?
All right. So my question is, as musicians, what are some ways that we can help other people who have mental problems?
Write honestly about how you feel. Relate. That's, you know what's crazy is when I started doing that, that's when I started selling records. It was weird. I write about all love and prettiness and whatever. When I started writing songs like Hate Me Today, you know, like how I really felt, that's when people started buying records. And people started going, hey, I don't feel so alone. You know, so be as honest as a songwriter as you possibly can. Almost to the point sometimes I go, ooh, am I going to get in trouble for saying this? You know, but it helps a lot of people. That's what I would say.
I'd say also you gotta there's so many people that are, you know, they want to profit off of your misery. You know, and if you're trying to, you know, if you're a writer You know, I would just say, like Justin said, just be honest. Be honest with yourself. And there's a lot of aspects to that honesty, you know, and don't be afraid to dive in to try to tap into wherever that honesty is. But there can be, you know, if you don't have people around you that really care about you, you know, that's why I've tried to surround myself with management or, you know, whatever record label or whatever, just people who care, they care that I'm a good father. They care that I'm healthy, you know, because some people, they want to feed you with drugs so that you'll, you know, be all turned all the time, and then you'll make that kind of music, you know, because it might be more profitable, you know. But, you know, it's the difference between the art and the commerce, you know, the art we're really trying to focus on, and the money, the finances you get from it. And the best art isn't always the most, you know, profitable. And, you know, so if, I think, you know, one, we got to be open, you know, as a writer, you got to be open and honest, and you might not want to make all your songs like that, but then again, you might, you know, and you got to go with whatever, you know, is bringing you joy, you know. And if the money is what brings you joy, then, you know, maybe find a way to tap into it to where it can be profitable as well. But, you know, I think at the end of the day, you got to do what, you know, you got to do what makes you happy, you know, because the art is, you know, when we all start off to do this, it's something that's calling us to do this, to make the songs, to write, whether it's poetry or lyrics or whatever. Just, you know, it's, and just whatever's calling you, follow that.
True.
Thank you. Thanks, Samuel.
Thank you.
And forgive me if I get this wrong. Zit Lali.
Hi,
Did I say it right?
it's Sitlali.
Beautiful name.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to say I loved what Gina said about her queer situation. I know I can definitely relate from that. That helped a lot. So as musicians, our music is, you know, it can be soothing to us. It's like therapy, but sometimes, like Gina said, that critic starts to play in your head, and you're like, will anyone care about this? Will they like it if I put it out? You know, how do you help silence that or cope with that inside voice?
I don't worry about it. Like, I don't worry about it. I did that whole thing where I had an album that sold a lot of records, and then the next album I didn't sell hardly any, and people were like, failure. But guess what? That album that sold like little is my favorite album because it was raw and it was sick, and I still get people going, ooh, I can't believe you said that. And that song makes me cry. And oh, that song saved my life. You know, so I don't even worry about what people are gonna think. I just make that art. I just pretend like I'm Van Gogh and I'm painting in a warehouse. And then when I put it out, it's because what my head told me to put out. And then it's people can love. I don't even read Facebook. I don't read comments. I don't do it. That's just sabotaging yourself. Why do you need to know? Put your art out because it heals you. It soothes you. It completes a spot in your heart, not for other people. Unless you want to make like a really quick pop song where you can make a bunch of money and run for it. I'll do that too, you know, okay. But the art, that's a true gift that you have. Don't worry about what other people think.
Lali, I know for me, I feel like there's two kinds of people. I feel like there's people who fight the world, and there's people who fight themselves. And I am 100% in the fight myself world. I feel like the world is amazing to me, and then I sit there and wonder why. And I spend my time being like, why is the world so amazing to me? I don't deserve it, you know, and I go down that whole, like, I'm not worthy rabbit hole. And so I know when you say critic, I immediately think of my critic, the critic that's in my head. You know, like that's the critic that means something to me. And quite honestly, I think you might try the morning pages practice, because part of the whole purpose of it is to tell your critic to shut up. And so one of the things to think about is like in songwriting, I've learned about like there's the critic, also called maybe like the professor, and then there's swamp man, or like, you know, it's basically kind of like you need both, because you need swamp man to come and like just throw up all over the page. And then you need the professor to come out and be like, hey, that one little line is pretty good, right? But the rest of this is crap. The problem is when the critic comes out or when the professor comes out too early, the swamp man can't do his thing, right? And so you need to train your critic, like you need the critic, but you need to train your critic when they can speak up. It's like you're driving a car and the critic does not get to drive the car. The critic can be in the back seat and can have all the fears and all the things, and they belong there. They're part of you, but they don't get to drive and they don't get to decide what you're listening to on the radio, right? So it's about training their critic on how to be involved in the process. And for me, I think the morning pages has actually been a great practice. So you might just try that as a start.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we have time for one more.
My name is Jude.
Hi, Jude.
Let's see. My question, I would say when you're like how, I don't know, whenever I like write things, trying to get out of like a negative mindset or like a negative headspace, when you I guess like how do you I don't know how to phrase this. I'm kind of coming up with this right now because I didn't know as much.
Hey, it's all good. You don't have to. You don't have to ask it the right way. Just speak your mind. Speak freely. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's all good.
But like staying motivated when you're in like a negative headspace and kind of like writing it out. How do you do that? How do you keep going with a project when you're when you don't always have a consistent level of like drive to do it?
Straight up for me, if I'm in the studio and I don't want to write lyrics anymore because I'm done, like for real, like if you like writing music, you like writing music?
Yeah.
You do? Mm-hmm. Get yourself in a Kai drum machine. MPC Akai. Because then if you're sitting there and you're writing lyrics and you get sick of writing lyrics, turn around and just make beats. And just make beats. Because making beats to me is like this whole mind frame where you can just get lost in the rhythm. You get to teach yourself different rhythms while you're writing this style, and you don't stick to one rhythm. You don't stick to one genre. You can just collect samples. That's a great snare. That's a great kick. And then just make beats. So then when you get sick and you're in that negative headspace, I can always go over to that MPC and just crank it up and just bang out beats. And it's like a frustration. Some people like to box. I like to bang out beats like loud. And then I just go back to writing when I'm ready for it.
Jude, did that answer your question?
What about you, Paul? What were you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to say, I got like a few songs all right, you know what I'm saying? And then if I get kind of hung up on one, I'll kind of go to another. And then if I just get completely frustrated, a lot of times I'll leave wherever I'm at to go somewhere else to get a different energy, a different vibe. It could be the corner store, the gas station, just the vibe from the guy working. Hey, totally. What's up? You know, and then it's a different energy. You come back, and then sometimes, you know, what always would get me is if I get always like hung up on a song, I'll just freestyle something, and it's usually not the best, but that'll get the juices flowing to where I can, you know, get to the next level. And one last thing I want to say about all of, you know, there's so much, you know, day-to-day trauma that we go through that we just deal with, but you know, sometimes it's a growing pain we're dealing with so that we can be better later on. You know, sometimes we're going through something tough and we think it's never going to end, and then when it ends, it completely changes your perspective about, you know, a situation. It could be anything. It could be how you look at other people, how you look at another religion or race or something. It could be just how you want to treat people because you remember how people treated you and you don't want to treat them that way, or you do want to treat them that way, you know. But, you know, sometimes you just got to keep pushing through it, and sometimes you'll just wake up one day and it'll be different. It'll be better. And you'll be like, damn, you're not even used to, you know, it being better. And it'll feel weird because it's like, man, I'm so used to feeling, you know, shitty every day. And then all of a sudden you feel not shitty in your mind. You're like, I'm supposed to be feeling bad right now. Why am I not? But you just got to keep pushing through it sometimes.
Yeah.
So true.
Thanks, true.
Paul.
Thanks, buddy.
I think this wraps up our panel. I feel like you guys have been so great and have given the students here so much information. We could go on, I feel like, for hours. I wish we did have that.
This is awesome. Just being on here with Paul Wall, like I said, and Gina, this is amazing. So thank you. I'm available anytime you need me for anything like this.
Well, I want to give a special thanks to the Texas Chapter Education Committee and Booker T. Washington's High Schools Advisory Board for co-hosting this event, Thank you to John Herrera for sharing his song, I Can Wear a Dress. That was amazing. Thanks to all the Booker T. Washington students who asked great questions throughout this panel today. And last but not least, thank you, Paul, Justin, Gina, for joining me in this important conversation. We will do more.